Round 6 of the Formula 1 2021 race calendar is done. The Azerbaijan Grand Prix is completed, and what a race! A race to remember for the ages, not because of the amount of overtaking that were done on track, but because of, some would say, the Pirelli tire failures that just caused chaos all throughout the grid and gave a brand new fresh podium this season. Sergio Perez winning his first race for Red Bull, Sebastian Vettel coming back onto the podium, the first podium for Aston Martin since their return to the sport, and Pierre Gasly just showing that he has been outperforming his AlphaTauri since coming back from Red Bull back to the sister team of AlphaTauri. So those were your top three: Sergio Perez, Sebastian Vettel, and Pierre Gasly. But what happened to the rest of the field? The pole sitter Charles Leclerc, leader and favorite of the Drivers' Championship, Max Verstappen, seven-time world champion Lewis Hamilton, and fellow Mercedes teammate Valtteri Bottas, who was supposed to be the biggest rival of Hamilton coming into this season. Now, surprisingly enough, 3 out of those 4 gentlemen did not score points, a single point. Lewis Hamilton, after a run of consecutively scoring points for the past 54 races, fell out of the points in this particular race. Now let's quickly run through what happened exactly into the race. Charles Leclerc starting from pole, Lewis Hamilton in P2. Hamilton took just 1 lap in the second lap of the race. Even without DRS on the back straight, the toe was so strong that he overtook Charles Leclerc on lap 2 of the race, went into the lead of the race, but did not check out immediately after overtaking the Ferrari. He was still in touching distance. Lap number 7 was when Max Verstappen overtook Charles Leclerc, and then it was setting up to be a 2-horse race yet again. But then Sergio Perez also overtook Charles Leclerc, and slowly Charles Leclerc started fading away into the race. Then came the first round of pit stops, where Hamilton pitted first, but because his team wanted to avoid an unsafe release and him running into Pierre Gasly was also pitting on the same lap, it was a rather longer stop than they would have wanted it to be. 4.6 seconds is what that pit stop came out to be, compared to what they were aiming for, somewhere around the 2-second mark, and that cost Hamilton the lead. Not only the lead, but also put him behind Sergio Perez. Both the Red Bulls pitting on the consecutive laps after Hamilton pitted. Max Verstappen taking the lead, Sergio Perez in P2, and Lewis Hamilton in P3. Now, tension started building in the pit lane when Lance Stroll crashed out of the race round about the 35th lap of the race after doing a mega stint on the hard tires. Remember, he started from P20 on the grid, and he was starting on the hard Pirelli compound tires, and his tire just blew off. There's a suspect of some debris on the track, but there's also a theory which says that the tires failed completely, which caused that big crash, which brought out the safety car. And there were a lot of people in the paddock then thinking, should we think of a 2-stop? Because even the front runners and the rest of the field, for that matter, were banking on doing a 35 to 40 lap stint on that hard tire. Again, on the restart, Max Verstappen held his lead. Sergio Perez also kept his position. Lewis Hamilton following closely behind in P3. All this while Valtteri Bottas struggling at the back of the field, not being able to find the pace in his Mercedes, and he was struggling way behind the front top 10 and out of the points in P12, trying to chase down a few cars to get into the points for that matter. Then came the big blow. 3 laps from the end of the race, Max Verstappen's hard tires went off. It was again the left rear tire which was suspected of a puncture and a failure. Now, whether that was because of debris or whether it was just a tire failure, in the coming days we'll get to know that from Pirelli and from the teams. But from the lead of the race, He spun out and had to retire because of tire failure, which left Sergio Perez in the race and in the lead of the race rather, and Lewis Hamilton behind in P2. Sebastian Vettel, after a mega stint on the hard tire, switching to the soft tire would have been his plan. Rather, he was the one running in P3 and was on for a podium. The safety car came out, and then the FIA decided to red flag the race because Verstappen had crashed out on the pit straight, and it was difficult to recover the car and clear out the debris. Now, following that red flag, it was a standing start, similar to the start when you start a fresh Grand Prix from the box on your grid, as you were at the end of the 49th lap when the race was red flagged. 2 laps to go. Lewis Hamilton came onto the radio just before the start of the race, and he said that this is not a sprint, it is a marathon, which indicated that he's not going to go into a lunge just to get victory into this race, and he's going to take it easy. But his brakes were firing up. There was a lot of smoke coming out of his brakes when he was parked on his box for this restart of the race, and he just locked up going into turn 1. Remember, before the braking point, he was alongside and ahead of Sergio Perez, means he was in the net lead of the race for a split second before he locked up and went wide, giving Sergio Perez the lead and the victory of the race, followed by Sebastian Vettel, followed by Pierre Gasly, who held off a late attack from Charles Leclerc to hold the final podium position of the race. Charles Leclerc finishing in P4. Now, a frantic race. Now, let's just run through the rest of the top 10. Lando Norris, an impressive solid P5. Fernando Alonso, that red flag really helping him out, finishing him in P6. Yuki Tsunoda in P7, ensuring that Alpha Tauri have a double points finish. Carlos Sainz in P8. A disappointing race from the Spaniard after starting in P5. Daniel Ricciardo P9. Respectable, but still not where he wanted himself to be. And Kimi Raikkonen for the Alfa Romeo, getting a single point in P10. That concludes a frantic race from the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, and that's the end of that from round 6. From here, we have another week's break, and after that we go to France, then Austria, and then Austria for a triple header. We will be back. I will be back talking about that in a couple of weeks' time, and it's going to be all Formula One for those 3 weeks. Until then, go watch the Azerbaijan Grand Prix if you haven't yet. It was a race. So remember,